Hi, I'm Matthew Fortner. I'm a photographer based in Charleston, South Carolina. You know, photography is expensive, and by the time most of us pay for a camera and a lens, it doesn't leave much in the budget for something like lighting. A lot of you may not have a flash, but almost all of us have one of these. I wanted to see how nice a light we could get using no special modifiers, using nothing but the LED flashlight from a smartphone. Since the light on the smartphone is continuous, you can see how well it works or doesn't work as you try different angles moving the phone around. So these lights are pretty handy in dim light, but they're not super bright, so you're gonna need a pretty dark place for this to work. Also, the darker the room, the less ambient light you're gonna have to compete with. We are, after all, trying to see what kind of light we can get from a smartphone, not the whole room. I put my Fujifilm X-T4 on a mini tripod, and it's a nearly dark room. It's a little brighter than ideal, but that's to help you see what I'm doing. Typically, we set up a light into a stationary position, and you can get some interesting results this way, but that's not going to help us get our big light feel. So let's see what we can do to get that softer light. Let's try softening the light with some DIY diffusion. I'm placing the phone inside a white paper napkin from a fast food restaurant, unused of course. If you leave a little space between the light and the paper, rather than right up against each other, this will allow the light to spread more and it'll have a larger, softer look. That worked pretty well, but let's try something else. You're going to need a really dark room for this. And this is where a tripod will really come in handy. You might be able to use the table or a stack of books to stabilize your camera, but you're going to need to keep it still for several seconds during a long exposure. With a longer exposure, we can brush or paint in the light, mimicking a larger, softer lighting source. I did manually set the white balance, but I think it was close enough that you could correct it afterwards. I set the ISO to 160, and the aperture varied from f8 to f16, depending on how long I wanted the exposure to be. Now, you might be able to work more quickly than me, but I found I needed at least 1 second to even do a quick sweep of some light. The longer the exposure, the more I could experiment with the light. I was a little surprised how much I could pass my hand and my phone through the frame and it not affect the image. Now, of course, if you have the light shining into the lens, it is gonna appear, but you can do some pretty interesting light trails and streaks with that. So this worked even better than I thought it would. If you've got some tips, tricks, suggestions, or questions, please drop them in the comments below. And check out my other videos where I use a shopping bag and a padded envelope for beautiful light from a flash.